Good evening. Welcome to Columbia Heights Public Schools, Independent School District Number 13 School Board meeting for Tuesday, May 9th, 2017. I'd like to call the meeting to order and ask you to please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, and welcome again. Natty, if you would please read the roll.
Mueller? Here. Palmer?
Here.
Larkin?
Here.
Samurai?
Here.
Severson? Here. Lewis? Here. Superintendent Kelly?
Here.
Thank you. Our mission statement, Columbia Heights Public Schools create worlds of opportunity for every learner in partnership with supportive small-town communities by challenging all to discover their talents, unleash their potential, and develop tools for lifelong success. Our core values are community, excellence, collaboration, integrity, respect, courage, and innovation. Next up is the agenda approval, adjustment, announcements, and correspondence. First would be the approval of the agenda. If I could get a motion to move that forward, please.
So moved.
Laura?
Second.
Molly, thank you. Any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstain? Motion carries. Next up is the announcements. On May 16th, it's a Tuesday at 5 p.m., there'll be a school board listening session. Also on May 16th at 5:30, the school board work session. On May 23rd at 6:30, it's a Tuesday, would be the Employee of the Year celebration here in the community room. And then also on May 23rd at 7 p.m., regular scheduled school board meeting. And on May 29th, which is a Monday, there'll be no school. The district offices will be closed. Correspondence, Superintendent Kelly, is there any correspondence this evening?
Mr. Chair and members, there's no correspondence this evening.
Okay, thank you. Communication to the board, citizen and employee representatives. At this time, any citizen or employee may briefly address the school board. The school board will listen to the brief remarks, ask clarifying questions, and if desired, request that administration follow up. The board will not take action at this meeting on requests presented at this time. Anyone here to speak to the board? Okay, move on to the consent agenda, which contains the personnel report, minutes of the April 11th and 25th school board meetings, the April 18th work session, and the treasurer's report for March 2017. If I could get a motion to move that forward, please.
So moved.
Lorian?
Second.
Natty? Thank you. Any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstain? Motion carries. Next up will be discussion reports and information items. Reports from members of the board. Board members will report on board activities since the last regularly scheduled meeting of the Board of Education. And since I always pick on everybody else first, I'll go first tonight. And then we'll go from there, and then anything that you guys remind me of, I'll recap with at the end. Not in any particular order, I attended the high school conferences, and once again, the system seems to be working well. Lots of people and good information being given out. I attended the Boosters Recognition Dinner, the career celebration, which was a really, really good time. It was a lot of fun. Sad. What was the total years of service? Do you remember?
204.
204 years of service, retiring this year. I attended the principal meet and greet, just the first person that was interviewing, and then I went to the musical several times. So that's my report. Laura?
Okay. Okay, well, I attended the conference, Highland Fine Arts Night. There was concerts by I believe it was the 3rd and 4th grade. Oh, I'm probably going to get that wrong. But I know the 5th grade band also played as well. And they served dinner, which was actually really quite good from a school cafeteria. Big thumbs up on that. And met and talked with a lot of constituents there, and it was a lot of fun. And it was a very, very, very well-attended event. It was very, very busy. I think that's the busiest I've ever seen Highland. I also had lunch with Member Lewis, and thank you very much for that. Always enjoy sitting down and chatting about stuff that's just stuff. So I appreciate that. And then I had the great privilege of attending the career celebration, and it's always a bittersweet, but it's always a fun event, and I enjoy being able to be part of it. I enjoy the bells and saying bye to people that, have been there for my kids all these years. So but they looked all happy, so I hope they have a good time on their travels. That's pretty much it for me.
Okay. Natty? Hold on, I'm jumping
Boy, she's
around
really
tonight.
jumping.
I've had a busy couple weeks, too. I was able to go to the Athletic Boosters Award Nights, which was great to see what the Athletic Boosters are doing, and they contribute so much to our schools. I got to attend the high school musical. Was there probably a week too late for Member Larkin's preferences, but I did get there. I was able to attend the Valley View Principal Forum. It was great to see those candidates in person. Also able to attend the career celebration, and I like the bells too. It took me a second to figure out, oh yeah, they used to ring school bells. I now understand. That's great, just in case that was lost on anyone else. I had a great talk with Superintendent Kelly about some of the things I did learn while I was in Colorado for the national convention. That was great. Thanks for listening. I got to attend several varsity baseball games, a game at Columbia Academy for the boys baseball team, and a girls softball game. So it was great.
Thanks. Molly?
Sure. I also attended the high school musical. I think, was it on the same night, the last night? So, but it was well done. The kids just did a great job, especially with the small number of cast that there was. They just did a great job. Had a nice meeting with Superintendent Kelly. Thank you very much. And I also attended the Athletic Boosters Award Dinner. Again, it's just really nice to hear a recap of all the things that they do for our community, not just in sports, but in all the activities, and just how many kids they end up helping out a year, and the dollars that we hear about are incredible. Also had an opportunity to go to the career celebration dinner. Again, thank you to everyone that's helped our children in the district for all the years that they have, and good luck in their retirements. And then, of course, it is the season for track, so I attended some varsity track meets and some middle school track meets as well. That's it.
Thank you. Paula?
All right. So since my last board meeting, I attended the work session, and then the conference is at the high school. Due to unforeseen circumstances, I wasn't able to attend many of the other things that were going on, but moving on.
Okay. Gloria?
Thank you. I attended the Valley View Principal Candidate Meet and Greet. I also attended the closing show of the high school musical, and was able to attend the career celebration, echoing what you all have said. It was a wonderful experience to be part of that. I also attended the synchronized swimming greatest show in H2O that was this evening. Those ladies did a fantastic job with their show, so that was really a great event tonight. I've had conversations with Chair Larkin and with Superintendent Kelly, and have had several conversations with parents and constituents over the past couple weeks.
Thank you. Superintendent Kelly, do you have a report this evening?
Yes, Chair Larkin and members, I do, and it's rather lengthy. I, too, attended the Columbia Heights Athletic Boosters Awards Dinner, and I want to say congratulations to John Larkin for receiving the Columbia Heights Athletic Boosters Distinguished Service Award. I want to thank the boosters for years and years and years of putting on a wonderful event, but most importantly, as other board members have said, for always being there to support our students in their endeavors, both academically and in the arts. I was involved, as many of you were, in the Valley View principal search with the finalist interviews happening, the candidate forum, and then the final recommendation going to the board, and that item is on the personnel report this evening. And I want to thank all in the viewing audience and in the buildings that helped with the selection process. It really informed the decision, so thank you very much for attending. I, too, attended the high school musical, Little Shop of Horrors, on 3 occasions. That wasn't as much as Chair Larkin, but it kept getting better and better. The students just grew into their roles, and it was wonderful. And congratulations to our cast and crew and the new director. I also want to say special thanks to the theater parents, including school board member Lorian Mueller, who hosted the cast party after the closing of the show. That was a very thoughtful and safe thing to do, and it was really appreciated. The world was alive with fine arts, both at Highland and Valley View elementary schools. I had occasion to see board members there. The bands were amazing. The choirs sang like angels. And you are right, Laura, when you talk about the meals served, I think there were over 400 meals served out of the Highland cafeteria. And I can tell you, the ice cream was very tasty at Valley View. So that was great, too. As you know, the admin team continues to work with concurrent enrollment for our students. It's a very important topic. And Director Stenvik, Director Bennett, Principal Robleski, and I had the opportunity to meet with the Anoka Ramsey site team on talking about how the courses are playing out and credentialing for our teachers. And that seems to be being right on track. And so very pleased about that. That's a lot more work than it sounds, and it makes so much possible for our students. I want to thank all involved in that. Director Stenvik, Director Holmgren, and I continue to make preparations for the federal programs audit that is starting tomorrow morning in the conference room. The federal programs audit will be going on for the next 3 consecutive days. They will be visiting multiple sites, including Immaculate Conception. It's been a lot of work to put everything together. We had a pre-conference phone call to make sure that we were meeting expectations, and so we will be updating you on the results of that audit once it is complete. In addition to that, Director Stenvik and I completed both the Valley View and Highland Elementary Spring Literacy site visits. Those were all-day events that started with walkthroughs in the morning and then meeting with building-level teams in the afternoon to discuss how we were implementing the literacy in the buildings. We have 3 more to complete, and I enjoyed the teachers taking the time to meet after school with us for the building-level site teams. Ties. I had a wonderful opportunity to attend the TIES Innovation Pilot Project for superintendents. It was a planning meeting to put input into the year-long process that we're going to be participating in at the superintendent and leadership level. And I also want to say that Superintendent Connie Hayes, who you'll be talking to later this evening, was also there. It was a worthwhile couple of hours, and I think that this could be as beneficial to the district as our Superintendent Technology Leadership Academy. So looking forward to that. That's part of their value-added program at TIES. The career celebration came off with 10 employees, whom John is right, with over 204 hours of experience leaving us. And I want to thank the board members who really attended and passed out the retirement bells. It's a long-established tradition and was very kind of you, because I know many of you had to adjust your schedules, and it was appreciated. Well, Principal Fort and I went on a walk on Saturday at Valley View Fun Run. There were a lot of other people running. Principal Fort and I, we were holding up the Willie's Way walk, and they had an amazing turnout. There were 185 people that actually were in the race or in the walk. We all got the orange shirts, which I swear every time I wear it, people will find me in any crowd. That was a lot of fun. They also had a ribbon cutting that Director Stuenkel attended, and Casey Mann was there as well, because we had the ribbon cutting was for some graphics that we're putting out on the playground that will support global awareness and diversity, and that was sponsored through the SHIP grant. And then it was a wonderful morning, and they had the taco truck going and the kids running, and it just felt like a wonderful community event. I hope everybody enjoyed it as much as I did. Maybe next year I'll run, but maybe not. It was their 4th annual. 2 last things. Director Stuenkel and Director Hennekins, as well as the manager of Buildings and Grounds, met with a member of the Citizens Concern for Safer Streets to update him on issues and actions taken already stemming from the April 1st meeting. And we are looking forward to continuing that conversation. We'll be updating the board as well. And then so many of you spent time with me in the last 2.5 weeks that I want to thank each and every one of you for the time that you've put in and for meeting with me individually. And as always, thank you for your time. I'm done.
I'm done. Thank you. Next up, item C is our quilt donation. I believe, Kristen, you're going to come up and help me with this one. The board will be presented with a quilt handcrafted by Connie.
Will you join me?
Hello. So, hi. Chair Larkin, members of the school board, Superintendent Kelly. It's our pleasure this evening to have community member and quilter extraordinaire, Connie Buskins, to join us this evening and present to the school district the quilt that she is donating to us. So I just have a very brief PowerPoint, the acknowledgement of the donation of a quilt. And this, we start off with our Worlds of Opportunity for Every Learner, and of which you're supporting our mission statement through this donation. And the core values that this donation of the quilt really represent are community, excellence, and collaboration, for which we're very grateful. This is a photograph that was taken when Connie presented to Superintendent Kelly the quilt that you'll find right over here that she has completed in this past year. And this is a donation to our school district to support the efforts of Blooming Heights Edible Schoolyard. And a couple of years ago, Connie took an adult enrichment class on raising chickens in your backyard with our previous agriculture specialist and came to know about Blooming Heights that way and was inspired to support the efforts by making this beautiful quilt that was donated. Connie, would you like to say a little bit about how you came to offer this to our
Well, I
district?
was thinking of a way I could help with fundraising, because I'm sure she writes a lot of grants to bring in money. And I didn't, as far as money, I thought, I think I could do a quilt and hopefully raise more money than what I could actually personally contribute. So last year I asked, it was Bonnie, right? Yeah, it was Bonnie, if I could, she would like a quilt that could be donated to do as a chance to win quilt, and it went very well. So I asked them last year after we did the drawing, if I could do another quilt, and they said yes. So, so it started. It's just my way of supporting. I think gardening is really important. Learning how to grow your own food is very important for kids today. They tend to want to eat the food that they grow. It's a real interesting, plus it gets their hands in the dirt, and I think it's a phenomenal program. I myself am a gardener. I have 23 gardens in my yard, and avid, and I can and do all that stuff. So I think it's really important. So I love being able to find a way to support the program that you have here at the school. So.
And when Connie presented the quilt last year, she also read from this book, The Quilt Maker's Gift, which was wonderful. She read to our children here in the Family Center. And that was just a perfect tie-in to the generosity of spirit that's represented in this book and also in Connie's contribution to our school district. And we would just really like to acknowledge with deep gratitude the generous donation of this quilt to our school district to support the Blooming Heights efforts. So
You're
thank you
welcome.
very much.
You're welcome.
And I believe we have a certificate of appreciation.
You are correct. And I don't know about your 23 gardens at home, Connie, but I can attest to the fact that she absolutely is an avid supporter of gardening. I saw her in between meetings in another role that she plays in the community with her clippers and weeding and stuff in a garden that was elsewhere. So she truly, obviously, loves what she does when it comes to the gardening. So, and we do have a certificate, and what I'd like to do, I'll read this, and then I'll ask you to come up, Connie, if you would, so we could present this to you. It says, Connie, in appreciation and gratitude for the donation of a quilt to support the Blooming Heights Edible Schoolyard Program, thank you for your dedication to the students, staff, and community of Columbia Heights Public School District. So if you wouldn't mind coming up, we'll see if we can get a picture of you up here.
Come this way. Okay.
Can I just say one last thing? John, can I just say one last thing on this?
Yep, go ahead, Connie.
I just,
You just stop her.
okay.
Connie, don't run away just yet. Connie? Connie? Don't run away just yet.
As you take your seat, I had one final comment in that I am not a person that makes quilts. I'm a saver of quilts. I go through antiques stores and find them and rescue them from my house because it takes hours and hours and hours of work and design and implementation to do this work. So although Connie says she whipped out 2 of these in 2 years, that is a tremendous feat. And I not only want to thank you for your generosity, but for your artistry. And I'm sure whoever is lucky enough to get this in the end will treasure it as much as I, who rescues the quilts from antique shops. Thank you.
Yep. And thank you, Connie. You were just one of many, but certainly an excellent example of the community and how they collaborate with the districts and work to make things, better for, ultimately for our kids. So thank you for being a part of that. It's truly appreciated. Thank you. Okay, next up is Northeast Metro 916 presentation, Connie, and there's Laura.
It's going to be a hard act to follow. It's going to be hard.
Or is she just setting it up? Okay. Oh, she just said-
Chair Larkin, members of the board, Superintendent Kelly, thank you so much for having us here tonight. It's really my privilege to introduce Superintendent Connie Hayes from Northeast Metro 916. We are a member district with this intermediate district and are very proud of the collaborative relationship that we have and the supports that they provide us, specifically with the realm of special education. So now I'm going to turn it over to Superintendent Hayes.
Thank you very much, Board Member or Chairman Larkin, members of the board, and Superintendent Kelly. Thank you very much for the invitation to come and share some of the 916 story with you, and also a special call out to Laura. We really enjoy having Laura part of our 14-member school board at 916. I'm going to tell a little bit more than what you see in the slides. Some of you might not be as familiar with 916 as others that have been on the board for a little bit longer. So let me give you a picture of who we are first. We are a 14-member collaborative district. Recently grew by 4 members in the last couple of years. Columbia Heights has been with us for many, many years, and we've appreciated their partnership. Intermediates were formed by the legislature back in the late 60s for the purpose of member districts coming together for cost efficiency in the areas of special education and career and technical services. And since that time, each of the now 4 intermediate districts in the metro area, we've morphed and we've done some other things depending upon what our member districts are interested in us doing with them and for them. So lots of things, a lot of detail we probably can't go into tonight, but just to let you know that we go beyond some of those traditional services of career and tech and special ed. Oftentimes people wonder, well, how many students do you see every year in your programs? And I want to point out on this picture, there's a little icon down in the bottom corner, and it says duplicated head count, which is a little different than probably the student numbers that you share around the board table. You probably talk a lot about average daily membership, weighted daily membership. Many of our data sources use this duplicated head count to tell the story of the number of students that move in and out of our programs very frequently throughout the year. Some of them move into hospital settings, come back to us. Some of them move into the law enforcement area, come back to us. Some kids are homeless and they're in and out of school. So the stories are quite long and varied, but the unduplicated count really helps to tell the story of the challenges that these students bring to school. So you can see in that picture across our basic programs, the number of students we touch in our center-based programs. Beyond that, we also see students in your districts, in your schools. You might hire a partial FTE of a specialist, like a deaf and hard of hearing teacher. If you only have 2 kids, it's too expensive to hire a full-time teacher, so you share a teacher with another one of our districts. So those students we see on an annual basis as well. Well, you saw the map of all of our member districts, and now you see another map of where all of our programs are located. We do try to locate our programs as close to our member districts as possible, and over the last several years, many of you know we've been engaged in a building project, starting with our building up at in the city of Blaine called Carner Blue Education Center. Our second building will open up, which is in the city of Lake Elmo. That will open up this next fall. And then we are rebuilding our big high school building that's located in the city of Little Canada, and that will open up in the fall of 2018. And one of the main thrust behind that process was to consolidate a lot of smaller programs so that we could be more cost efficient for our staffing, as well as help you be cost efficient for your transportation. So on the screen, you're going to see the 2 programs that are going to close. They're highlighted when Pancalo opens up in the fall. So each year I get out to talk to member districts. The number of spots on this map is dropping, which is a good thing. That's helping us with those efficiencies that I spoke about earlier. We also provide area learning center services for our member districts, and many of our programs in ALC started because member districts have asked us to help them with these services. And for many years we ran the ALC program for Columbia Heights. It was located here in the city, and just within the last several years we developed a collaboration between Columbia Heights and Spring Lake Park. And now that facility is located in the city of Fridley, but in the Spring Lake Park School District. The next slide highlights the students that we have at all of the sites, but Metro Heights is the one that I spoke about a moment ago. And you can see in the last fiscal year, which is where we have the most recent full data, you had 250 students that attended the Metro Heights Academy that were served there. And our Eastview Academy is our biggest program, located in Little Canada, and then the smaller one at Mahtomedi. Our Career and Technical Center is located on the campus of Century College. I'm going to go to the next slide there. We have a wide variety of career and tech courses available to students. Columbia Heights doesn't participate as much in this program, but there is quite a distance for students to travel. It's not a full-time program for students. They come for a 2-hour block of time and then return to their own high school. So some of our member districts that are further away from the center do have a difficulty participating in this program because of the wind chill time. But we do have some of your students who have participated, and you can see in the kind of the green color bar which programs they attended and how many students were in those programs. One of the things I do like to highlight is in the upper left-hand corner, when students have the capacity to attend these programs, they do get access to college credits, and a number of our students move right on to Century College to finish out their certificate or AA degree at Century College. We're very happy that over the years we've developed a strong partnership with Century College, which has really grown over the last couple of years. In fact, over this last year, they've included us in their strategic planning, which was really an honor to be a part of that. They're about to bring in a brand new president coming up this spring, so we enjoy that partnership with them. Then moving on to our special education services. Most people, when they think of the intermediate school districts, they think of our special education services. And certainly it is the biggest part of work that we do for our member districts and with them. We mostly serve students in what's called federal setting level 4 programs, which means learners who are member districts enroll in our programs all day long. So they're in a special program. They aren't integrated back into their local district. And typically these students have very complex needs. They're all wonderful students and they all have great capacity to learn, but they do need some very specific guidance, some very specific strategies and curriculum in order to reach their potential. And at this point, I'm going to share a brief little video with you. Laura has seen this at our board meeting. It's a way for me to kind of start a story to tell you about our legislative advocacy that we had this year, and we think we are very close to success on a very important funding mission that we've been on. So this tells kind of a crisp, clean story about some of the students that we serve in special ed.
Most of us are familiar with schools and school districts, but have you ever heard of an intermediate school district? It's sort of like a co-op, where lots of people pool resources and ideas for a common goal. Intermediate school districts provide specialty services to regular school districts within a geographical region. We serve more than 20,000 students annually in the areas of special education, area learning centers, care and treatment, career technical programs, and more. These are specialized services that many smaller school districts find difficult or too costly to provide on their own. Intermediate school districts serve some of Minnesota's most unique learners. Many students are referred to us by the school district they live in. Our youngest learners are small children, and our oldest students are young adults in transition to live on their own and succeed in a career. In our special education programs, we serve all kinds of unique learners, some with autism, fetal alcohol syndrome, or cognitive or emotional disorders. But all our students have one thing in common. They are determined to succeed. Unique learners have unique learning needs. They need teachers and staff who are experts in disabilities, special education, mental health and trauma, and they need unique facilities and equipment too. For example, meet CJ. He's in 5th grade and has been to 5 different elementary schools. He's been suspended 8 times and expelled from school twice for violent behavior. As a toddler, DJ experienced severe trauma when he was hurt by his babysitter. He doesn't have an official medical diagnosis, but is suspected to have a behavior disorder. DJ's teachers and parents thought he would do best in an intermediate school district, so that is where he is now. Our biggest challenge is how to best support a subset of our students who have complex disabilities and extraordinary mental health needs. Some of these students, like DJ, are exposed to trauma, like community violence, natural disasters, domestic abuse, neglect, and more. This combination of needs often results in dangerous situations and violent behavior at school. Our schools have become the front line of the children's mental health system. Keeping everyone safe is our biggest responsibility, but we also need to meet all educational expectations. We're pretty good at it, but it gets harder every day because the need for our services continues to grow, both in the number of students we serve and in the level of support they require. Critical incidents, assaults on staff, threats to schools, police interventions, and suicide attempts are not uncommon. But student behavior can be misunderstood, and educators know behavior is one way students with disabilities communicate. One time, DJ became so violent, we had to call the police to calm him down. They took him to the emergency room, but the hospital told his family that he was too violent to be near other doctors and patients, so they sent him back to school. Schools alone don't have resources to address the growing group of students who show dangerous behaviors, complex pharmacological profiles, and/or multiple developmental, cognitive, and neurobiological disorders. Our schools are at a tipping point. DJ doesn't have access to regular mental health care. His parents love him and are trying their best, but they have exhausted all educational resources within their reach. DJ's family is at a tipping point. If we don't help DJ now, he could have lifelong challenges with his mental illness that affect the entire community. What if there was an integrated education and mental health partnership that could offer solutions to families like DJ's? Imagine if school became DJ's go-to place for both mental health treatment and education. During the school day, he could experience hands-on learning, therapy, counseling, and more. His teachers and medical providers would work together throughout the school day to meet DJ's mental health and learning needs so he can gain the skills he needs to succeed in school and life. This future is not in DJ's dreams. It's not in a private school. It's not in Canada or Finland. It's right here in Minnesota. To jumpstart this future, the Integrated Education and Mental Health Partnership needs one more partner. That partner is you.
I'll go back to the legislative slide. So there's a quick synopsis of what our legislative appeal was, starting at the beginning of session. And I'm really happy to report that we have made it into the conference committee report and perhaps are very close to having our legislation funded. What we will be able to do with those resources is to be able to bring in some intensive mental health services to our students who need more than 1 hour a day or 1 hour a week of therapy with a clinical therapist. They need something every day, and some students need it multiple hours in a day. So we're really looking forward to the opportunity of really building a program that we haven't been able to find anything across the nation. So I think it is a little bit groundbreaking, and we hope to really build some data that shows how well these services being fully integrated into their school day can help them become the best students that they can be. So we're very excited about that. A little bit of the numbers about your special education students. These circles here represent all of our different special education center-based programs, and unless you have a question, I won't talk about any of them specifically, but you can also see a call out of the students that you enrolled in each one of those programs. The total number of students we had in all of our programs last year was over 750, and you enrolled as a district 67 students in those programs.
Superintendent Hayes, could
Yes.
you please talk a little bit about Project Return? Because I'm not sure that everybody in the room knows what that is.
Sure. So you can see up on the screen there, it's over on the right-hand side. Sometimes what happens at a local district is a student is returning back from a hospitalization or returning back from JD, or has been potentially being considered for suspension. There are about as many different stories as there are students. And what we sometimes hear from the local districts is we're not really sure exactly how to meet the needs of this individual student. How do we return the student successfully back into our system without a kind of a transition discovery period of time? And so we have this program called Project Return, which is a short-term placement in a program, and many of those students, we do assessment, we do consultation with the family, we help develop some important goals for the student and the school program, and then talk to the school district where the student is from to potentially place the student in an appropriate place back in your local district, or sometimes the appropriate placement is to have them move into one of our other programs. It's very popular. The development of this program actually came out of discussion with our member districts. Our special ed director said, we have this problem, and it was a common problem across all of our districts, and so we developed a program. This one came about 10 years ago and continues to be one that districts are feel very important to answering those tricky questions.
Superintendent Hayes, I want to thank you for kind of calling out and talking about that, because that is a very helpful program for our students.
Yes.
And many times the growing up that happens there and the assessments and the diagnostics help us when they re-enter so that we can better support them. So thank you for that.
Welcome. Now, on this slide, we're going to talk about student numbers as well, but I want to point out in the bottom corner, this is now an unduplicated head count. We wanted this set of data to be a little bit more consistent with how you think of students in your district, because in a few slides here, we're going to talk about actually classroom space in the district. And In Columbia Heights, you can see over the years, your numbers have actually grown in terms of the number of students that you have sent to us. And this is not an uncommon trajectory that many of our districts are showing. And because of that, we are starting to have some new conversations with our member districts. So Laura will be particularly interested in this slide, I think. When we presented to the board our data about our enrollment growth that we were seeing, data that we had collected through 2011, and the board approved our building facility plan in 2012, that yellow line really kind of shows where we were projecting our growth to be. And as we established the number of classrooms that we would be building, we estimated that we would be able to serve our member districts pretty well for about 10 years at that rate of growth. The line above that, the second one, is what has actually happened with our enrollment growth. And although the difference between the two lines is not as big as it might be if you were talking about a single classroom of 26 to 30 kids. In our world, with the complex students that we serve, one classroom has about 6 or 7 students, with staff included. So when we get 20 extra students, that's quite a few classrooms. And so what's been happening across our member districts is that the enrollment in our programs has been growing faster than what we anticipated. And in this particular fiscal year, 17, you can see it jumped up considerably even more. Let's go on to the next slide. And here's one of the reasons we have had some of the challenge. We are finding that doctors, advocates, specialists are recommending to parents who do not live in any of our member districts to open enroll into our member districts so that they can get access to our 916 programs. I tell our staff we're a little bit of a, our own success has been one of our challenges in this way. And so you can see that number has been growing over the years, and that 20 represents about 4 classrooms. And the interesting thing is we have about 20 kids on a waiting list from our member districts to enter our programs. And so if we didn't have this open enrollment challenge, we would easily have enough room today for all of our member district students. When Pancalo opens up in the fall, that will that tension will lessen a little bit, but we still have to be cognizant of what that trajectory has turned out to be, and that's where we're going to start to have some conversations with our members. But here's a quick summary of our facilities plan. As I said earlier, Carner Blue opened up in the fall of 14. Pancalo will be fall of 17, and Quora, which is currently called Capitol View, will be finished, and students will move into the new building on site there fall of 18. I know a couple of you have visited our programs, and Carner Blue has been a popular one for member district leaders to visit. It was really our first chance to design a school that's designed specifically for the needs of these students. Kind of the magic we discovered going through the design process was a combination of hospital behavioral health design and school design woven together. And some of the successes that have been hearing from both our students and staff is that the students love coming to school. The parents are not necessarily fighting to get their kids to come to school, and staff are telling us with reduced behavioral issues, they're having time to teach. And it's interesting that teachers would say, I get to teach, but that's exactly what happens in these classrooms. And fewer staff injuries and higher engagement of our students. Pancalo is being designed very similar to Carner Blue, but we're enhancing a couple of items that you can see there on this slide. The one I want to point out mostly is that we increase the addition of natural light. Some children with autism, for example, are very bothered by artificial lights. It causes a lot of anxiety for them, so the more natural light we can bring into the facility, we can reduce the use of lights during the day, and it helps to keep them calm and focused on their work. And then our high school building, which I mentioned, is Quora. I won't go into detail on how we got that name, but many of the design features that we discovered first in Carner Blue and now have included in Pancalo, we are also including in Quora. And a big piece of what our teachers say is really important for these students is to have small breakout spaces for students who have challenging behaviors, who can walk away from a situation where they're becoming anxious and starting to get dysregulated. And then if they go to a separate space, they can practice some of those skills that we've been teaching them and become more self-regulated. So I mentioned earlier, there's a couple of things we're talking to our member districts about. I briefly mentioned this at the last superintendent's meeting, and Dan had a meeting with the coordinators and directors last week. With that trajectory of the number of students coming, as administration at 916, we've just had to really come to grips with what is the best way to serve our member districts out into the future. And I've said to my team, and I've said to the superintendents, we could easily keep building buildings and keep referring all of these students into our programs, but I'm not sure that's the most economical thing to do, and I don't believe it's the best thing for us to have 1,000 level 4 students coming from our member districts. So we want to take a couple of opportunities to try to work with our member districts in their Setting 3 programs, to share some of the strategies, some of the skills that we have learned in how to help students with these complex needs, with the hopes of slowing down that trajectory of the number of students, the growing number of students that are coming to us. So we're looking forward to some partnerships. We had just a brief discussion here about maybe including Columbia Heights, perhaps, with the work that we're going to be doing with Fridley starting this summer and into next year in some training. And perhaps, since you're so close by to Fridley, perhaps we could do a collaboration between the districts. One of the things that we have been doing is we have a consultative team that will come out to your district and work with the team that's working with that students to provide some strategies now, but we need to go beyond that in order to accomplish those goals of really slowing down the number of students that need to move to a more restrictive environment. So I'm particularly looking forward to this. Having worn the hat of a general ed superintendent in the past, I know the tough decisions you make here at the local district, and if we can be a partner in a different way to help you with some of the challenges that you have with some of these complex students, I'll feel really good about having an opportunity to do that. So with that, I will close and certainly be available to answer any questions any of the board members might have.
Anybody have any questions for Connie? Great information. Thank you very much.
I would just like to say one more thing. I'm sounding like Director Hennekins. I don't know here tonight, channeling him. Brian always says one more thing, but it's really hard for school systems to find nurses that will come and work for us. At our rates of pay, it's hard to find nurses. You see it everywhere across the nation, whether that's an emergency room or in an operating room. And I don't know how 916 does this, but they help us provide us with those nurses. And Joanne Larson, who I know all of you see so embedded that she feels just exactly like she is our person. She is, but she was really found and is part of the 916 staff. And there are also people that are embedded in our buildings that we just call our staff, but we wouldn't have them without 916 really attracting and creating that irresistible employment so that they will work for 916 and then filter their way and find us. So I wanted to thank you for that, because we would not be able to offer the programs and services in this district if we could not pick up the phone and say, do you happen to have? And you come through. So thank you for that as well.
Well, thank you for that word, irresistible employment. I think I'm going to share that at the next time I do orientation with our new staff.
Very good.
Thank you very much for the invitation.
Thanks for coming out.
I just have a, oh gosh, I just lost it. Could you briefly maybe explain to some of the newer members here, some of the collaborations that we've done on some personal development and different programs, like the program for economic return on investment?
Oh,
So-
certainly. What Director Palmer is talking about is an area of my budget, which I call my partnership budget. I set aside some dollars each year to work with my member district superintendents on common interests of leadership challenges. And one of the groups that we've worked with for the last few years has been called the District Management Council. And the project that Director Palmer is talking about is a project where we trained our local district leadership teams in the capacity to study an initiative that was in the district and include both the success of that initiative in the district as well as what it cost in the district, so that as a leadership team, they could look at that initiative and say, are we getting the results that we had hoped for by implementing that initiative, and informing us as to what is the cost per student. Some districts in the projects that they did, it allowed them to ask some very keen questions about what do we want to do differently with this initiative? Do we want to, not do it anymore? Do we want to tweak it? Do we want to add to it? But it helped districts really do almost a scientific study, if you will, about how well the project was working. And I believe you studied your AVID program?
We did. I can comment on that, and thank you for that. Our initial, the initial project that we began with was special education and the streamlining and efficiencies of services, and that was fascinating because as we meet as a superintendent group and got our teams together, we really learned from one another on what was duplicative services and where time on task was, and that was really our first introduction to the DMC, and Connie really partnered with all of us around the table, but gave us choice on what our topics were to be. We stayed on that. We still do that every year, but we've learned to do it on our own because we've now embedded it into our organization. Our second project, Connie's exactly right, was the AVID program. And when we went through that particular one, there were some districts that studied AVID. There were other districts that had other programs that they wanted to look at. And there were 3 or 4 of us that were studying AVID, so we met as small teams. And then we met as a whole large group and shared out on all the projects. And that was invaluable. And another thing that Connie really helped to facilitate as part of that partnership is that small districts, and even semi-large ones, can't really afford to have a psychometrician on the staff to do the data analysis. And Connie, with her creative leadership, really said to the superintendents, how about if we all go in on one psychometrician for all of us, and so we can do our scientific projects. And she went out and found somebody completely out of the box thinking that was perfect for the job, and that person assisted our school district for about a year and a half to complete our scientific data because we don't have that kind of people on staff. So very useful, and that's how we use those academic return on investment dollars through partnership with 916.
Great description. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks again.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Moving on to transportation bids.
Okay. Chair Larkin, members of the board, Superintendent Kelly. Every 4 years, we've got to go out for bid for our transportation services. Although our transportation provider that we're using right now, we're satisfied with. But again, that's something we have to do by law. So as we quickly talk about the contract going forward, again, our mission, just to remember that we're here to create worlds of opportunity for every learner. And when we're looking at our core values, when we look at transportation, we're looking at community excellence, of course, collaboration with our vendors. So this spring, we went out for bid actually back in February. It's kind of been a long process getting this information put together because we only received one full service proposal from a transportation provider, which is our current provider. So that was good in that way. But we really had to do a lot of negotiation to get the price point down because they were really looking for a relatively large increase. We also looked at our Type 3 service. This is the service that we need in place for our homeless population and a lot of our special education, especially students that are going out to 916 buildings. Positive things that happened in the negotiation process. A fuel cost has been retained. The vendors always want us to lower that top price, so we're paying more of that cost for them. We have no reduction in services, and for future increases, we have for not this year but the year after, it's either 3% or what the state of Minnesota gives us, and that's what we've had the last few years. So it's limited to what we actually get. So if we get 2%, we let them have 2%. If we only get 1%, they're only going to get 1%. So that's stayed in place also. And when we get all said and done here, when we get the actual net increase to our budget with this new service, well, not new service provider, but for the new contract, is actually a negative net cost. So that turned out very, very well. And as you know, our desegregation dollars for transportation have been decreasing. So when we are losing some of that revenue and we're looking at a net decrease in cost, we're able to balance that budget going forward very well. So I'm very pleased with how it had turned out, and it's getting kind of late now that we're into May, but it's taken quite a few weeks to sit down with that service provider to make this work. So a recommendation that will come to you at our next regular board meeting would be to award a 4-year contract to Loren Bus Service. And then we are still in the process of I can't even talk. So negotiating with our Type 3 service provider, and we're down to 3 at this point. We're going to finish that up this week. But no matter who we pick out of those 3, is going to be less cost than we're paying now. So that's also very good news. It doesn't hit our budget as much because we have reimbursements that come to that. So when we only pay about 15% of the cost, we don't see a big savings there. But will be less than the year before. So I'm very pleased to report that out to you. So at this point, is there any questions?
Laura.
Just a comment. I was really nervous about this. Good job. Thank you.
Yeah,
You gotta keep at
especially
it,
when we
though.
only had one service provider actually bid. We were very nervous on how we were going to go about, because when you look at other school districts right around us, everybody's paying a higher rate than we're paying. So that's where the pressure is coming to wanting our rate higher. So we are very pleased with how it turned out.
I rather like the company, too. I think that they've served my children fairly well, so.
Yes, I would agree.
Yeah.
And they are certainly a significant improvement over our last
Oh,
vendors.
yes.
Any other questions or comments? This will be on the 23rd?
Yeah, it's 2 weeks from tonight.
Okay, great. Thanks, Joe.
Okay, thank you.
Next up, K-1 Literacy Curriculum Pilot Update.
Good evening, Chair Larkin, members of the school board, and Superintendent Kelly. I'm very pleased to be here this evening to discuss and share information on the K-1 literacy pilot with our curriculum coordinator, Tara Tuckroll. So, of course, our mission is to create worlds of opportunity for every learner, and the core value that we will be focusing on for this presentation is excellence. So, of course, today we're bringing forth information for you, and we will come back on May 23rd with the governance question to approve the adoption of the Wonders curriculum to be implemented in K-1 classrooms beginning in the fall of 2017. So a little bit about our process. Tara?
Good evening, Chair Larkin, members of the board, and Superintendent Kelly. We just want to share a little about the journey that we've taken looking at K-1 literacy. We began our journey in June of 2016 and really completed a needs assessment with our teachers and our staff, and we included our World's Best Workforce, which has community members as well as families, parents on there. What are we really looking for in a K-1 curriculum? And what does the data show us that we need to be really focusing in on? So we started by looking at that, and then we invited different publishers in to look at the different curricula to see what meets our needs. Between all of them that we looked at, which ones are meeting the needs that the teachers need as well as what the students need. So in November of 2016, we had an in-service day, and we invited all K-1 teachers, including EL and special education, as well as our administration, to listen to the top 3 curricula that we found that met our needs. We really wanted to ensure we had input from all of our teaching staff, and so they were able to listen to the 3, and they looked at the 3 and narrowed it down to 2 of them. And the 2 that they chose really met the goals and vision of Columbia Heights as well. In December, we started our process of looking at other districts using the 2 programs to see what is their data showing, as well as talking to some family members from there, talking to teaching and learning staff in there to see how did the implementation go and what are they noticing about the programs. So we were able to collaborate with nearby districts to discuss it. In February, we began a pilot in all 3 schools. We chose 4 classrooms, kindergarten and first grade, and we included the classroom teacher as well as an English learner teacher, EL teacher. And they piloted each program for 4 weeks. So the kindergarten classroom in Valley View and the kindergarten classroom in North Park were able to do the same unit for each of the 4 weeks, so we could really have collaborative conversations about them. And then in April, we just recently brought them all together, and Zena's going to share a little about that as well. We talked about what did you notice from the pilot. So we brought the teachers together and had them come up with their recommendation. They shared their recommendation with the World's Best Workforce, as well as with our K-5 literacy leadership team about which program, which curriculum they were looking at, and the reasons why. And then that brings us here to tonight to presenting a recommendation.
So if approved, then we'll move forward purchasing materials, planning for professional development, and then our supportive implementation process throughout the next school year. So a little bit about what we found out. We put together a daily log that we asked teachers to take notes on in about 8 different categories each day of piloting the curriculum. It was a big ask, and we really want to commend the teachers who stepped forward to pilot the curriculum and learn more about it and test it out and give us their honest feedback. Between the top 2 contenders, it was unanimous. This is the first pilot that I've done where we've had a unanimous vote by the teachers on what they wanted to choose and use. And here are some of the reasons why. First, students were very engaged and excited about reading and excited about literacy and writing. All of the books were really engaging. They're thematic with different levels. And so, for example, we've got some of the curricula outside the room for anyone to take a look at.
So for example, instead of during independent reading group time in our rotations, all of the kids will be learning about the same themes. And so the teachers can bring in those science and social studies concepts that are embedded in the curriculum. So of course it's aligned to standards, the social studies, the science, and the literacy and English standards that it needs to be aligned to the Common Core. It's aligned with the standards in that it's 50% nonfiction, 50% literature. Another thing that the teachers talked about were the writing components. Were really different from what we've been using in kindergarten and first grade. Really strong writing components. The digital and print resources, so not only allowing access and differentiation for students through technology integration, but also communication with families are embedded in there as well. Two of the other pieces that really sold us were that one of the teachers did a pre and post assessments for each of the pilots. And after the first pilot, there was a little growth, maybe more stagnant than any growth. When the teacher piloted Wonders, the students were so engaged and loved it so much that the students grew 2 levels through the ReadWell testing. They grew two levels in just a few weeks. So I think that really sold it for us, right? And lastly, in the feedback forums and the reflection forums, we asked them what was one of the hardest things about each of the curricula. And one of the teachers said, the hardest thing about this Wonders curriculum is returning it to you once the pilot is over. And then I think in very large capital letters wrote Wonders all the way with several exclamation points. So there's a lot of enthusiasm among the teachers, which they were able to, as Tara mentioned, present to the rest of the teachers in the district at elementary level. So those are some of the findings that we found. Implementation plan?
If approved, we want to share our implementation plan with you. In terms of materials, we're really looking at purchasing the materials for teachers to use this year before the summer. I know we think teachers go off and enjoy their summer, but they've already asked. They said, if we move forward, can we have the materials before the end of the school year? And we can get the teacher materials because we will use them for professional development. So we're hoping to purchase the teacher material so they have them before the end of the school year. And then in June, also providing an optional professional development, which gives an introduction to the program. So when they come back in August, they're able to jump right into it a little faster. And then we would purchase the student materials in July and August. So it would be ready for them to go at the beginning of the school year. And then just as we did with our math last year, we'll really put a focus in on literacy for K-1 for professional development throughout the year, which might look different. It might look like coaching in the classroom. It might be a trainer coming in to support them, but really giving the teachers what they need to implement the new curriculum.
So again, we'll be back with the governance question on May 23rd to approve the adoption of the Wonders curriculum, which will be implemented in kindergarten and first grade classrooms in the fall of 2017. Just a note, the reviewing all of the curricula that we reviewed would be on or under budget, so we definitely look at the funding. We work with any publishing companies on those price points to make sure that we're fiscally responsible, of course. And then again, the samples can be viewed. I can also bring them back prior to the next school board meeting if anyone's interested in really diving in and taking a look at the materials. We can provide those as well. And I just have one follow-up question, and that is, unfortunately, our parents just left, but if parents really want to look and review, how do we do that again throughout the year with our curriculums? So through curriculum nights, well, first and foremost, of course, through our World's Best Workforce Committee, we have curricular discussions there, but each of the schools have a curriculum night where we would put that on display and answer the questions that way.
I just have one other question. Is this limited to K-1, or would it have potential to grow? Is there other curriculum for 2 through 5, anything like that?
So we in recent years have a new curriculum for grades 2 through 5, Literacy by Design. Again, very similar, where it's a balanced literacy model, workshop model, online pieces and whatnot. We were open to the idea of selecting a different curricula or the same curricula for K-1 based on the pilot and looking at the data.
And we really based on our research and looking at the data, kindergartners need different things. They need more phonics, and the current literacy by design that we're using is great and rich in literature and whatnot, and writing and for the upper grades. But the kindergartners need that phonics development, that phonemic awareness, along with strong comprehension skills, all embedded in one. And they just found it to be far superior for those reasons, because they're different.
Yep, thank you.
Any other questions?
Yeah, so were there any drawbacks? I mean, nothing's perfect. What are the drawbacks with this one from the pilot that you've seen already?
Right, so from the pilot, do you want
Sure.
to address that? Otherwise,
One area, I think you're right, there's no one that covers everything. And so we'll definitely be taking a look throughout the implementation. But one thing that got brought up was the difference between kindergarten and first grade writing and the scope and sequence in that. So the teachers noticed it right away. So we've already put our feelers out to other districts to see what they've done with that. But that was one of the big areas that they noticed, was the writing consistency between kindergarten and first grade.
Okay, so a lack of vertical alignment that
Yes,
way?
yeah,
Okay.
between the two. And they only saw it in the writing area.
Okay. And the other question I had was, if this is something completely different, are there going to need to be PD dollars to get staff trained in how to teach this curriculum effectively?
yep, we would always provide professional development for any new course or curriculum. It comes with it, absolutely.
Is that something that we need to be looking into, like as an associated cost?
It would, either way, it would be roughly the same cost for any of the new one. We take into account and budget for all of those pieces. Yeah.
Thanks.
Anyone else? And this is coming back on?
May 23rd.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, we're going to move on to our action items. First up will be the out-of-state field trip. I believe we've got,
Dan is here too.
yeah, I see it. Yeah.
Chair Larkin, members of the school board, Superintendent Kelly, Principal Robleski, and I are here again this evening to bring forth the governance question on the out-of-state field trip. This information was presented on April 25th, the last time we came. So again, this is the New York Seminar Study trip. There's a sequence of years that's in your packet. And we just wanted to bring forth that governance question to approve the adoption of the New York City Study Seminar timeline and begin the fundraising activities for the 2019 New York City Study Seminar out-of-state field trip. It's a mouthful. As we mentioned at the last school board meeting, the fundraising is a big undertaking. And we just need that extra time and over the summer to really get the kids going over the summer and into the next school year, get our staff going and our students going to really begin that fundraising so that we're able to accomplish what we need to.
Okay, start with the motion to move that forward.
So moved.
Molly?
Second.
Natty? Discussion. Can we work Connie's quilts into that fundraising somehow?
I think Blooming Heights would be fighting you for that.
That's true. That's already kind of dedicated, isn't it?
I just
Connie can
had-
teach one of us.
I'm sure. I just wanted to, Director Stenvik, if you could we've modified the timeline by the addition of a few topics in a year. Would you mind commenting on that?
Sure. So originally, when this came forward to the board in the year 2014, 2015, the original proposal and what was approved only entailed choir, band, and theater. And then as we've gone forward in this process and really learning about the fundraising pieces, about how many kids and how this can work, we realized that the AP Studio Art students have been a handful of students each year that have advanced up through the courses and reached that really pinnacle AP Studio Art course. And so we figured that there would be space, and there has been space on the last two trips, to incorporate those students who are studying to really create their AP portfolio, and we found it to be very beneficial for them, even on this last trip. As I think I mentioned at our last school board meeting, students being able to see masterpieces and then incorporating some of those pieces back into their work that they do for their AP art portfolio. And then in addition, the extension, just continuing the sequence all the way through the year 2023.
Just a comment, Chair Larkin, members of the board, Superintendent Kelly. I think as we heard last time with the student brought forward, is the See, Do, Learn with the AP art students being able to bring that to fruition so that they know they can build their portfolio based off of what this experience has brought to them. And then I just want to make a note on the timeline of the trips is that was done, I believe, in 2015. And that was a collaboration with the former choir director and the now present band director who has been here since the inception. And at that time, Director Burkus, we sat down and developed this outline for students and for the programs. So that was done in 2015.
And part of the thinking behind that was to make sure that if at all possible, we weren't excluding students from trips. Is that correct?
Yes, what we, as we planned out, within the fine arts area or the music and arts, we found that students are either in choir and band, choir and theater, choir and art, band or art. And over there, that's been our experience of looking at students who have gone on the trips, that they've either had a combination or one of these areas. So in developing this outline of who goes when and is been developed, that we believe within that 4-year period, students will have that opportunity to go on that trip. Having said that, there are always maybe an opportunity for a student with a gap, but as we've talked about, talent always trumps grade level. So if there's a situation that's brought forward, a younger student would trump with talent. And this trip, we are looking at like our group for choir, the dynamics. In the band, it's our concert choir. In our art, it's our AP students. So as we look, there's already a criteria set in place for who's going to be eligible to start with.
Thank you for that. And one thing I want to also say is that if a student has gone on a trip in one area but qualifies in another area, we don't exclude. And I think there's been a really good discussion, and past boards, and I know that this board is interested in as well, that if there is a student that wants to go on this trip, that really feels they can go on the trip and are qualified, we use the theory, no child left behind, in a little different way. In that we fundraise, and that's why it is so important to have more than a year to fundraise. And I think what you will see from now on to make this trip possible for more and more students, because we are having more and more children on the stage at the 5th grade band. And so as they come up, we're going to have more and more kids that may or may not be able to keep up with the cost of inflation or prices. And so I think what you'll see in the future is, just as tonight, one group gets back, and then we ask the board for permission to start fundraising for the next group, so that we really don't leave any children behind.
And I think it's just one more thing that I'd like to bring up is that with the help of the donations of our community, this trip wouldn't be made possible for our students. And so I just want to reiterate that we thank the community for their donations for this trip. Because in other school districts, the No Child Left Behind is that's not their concept or their mission. So I'm proud to be part of our district that has the philosophy of No Child Left Behind.
Any other questions or discussion?
I love all of this. I'm just a little bit troubled by the positive light on No Child Left Behind.
Oh. We have a different take.
Just the naming is a little jarring, but.
I actually do have a question here. I saw that, I mean, obviously, this is the schedule we're looking at, but I see 1 year where we're looking at art choir and theater. That theater program is going to be growing. Are we looking at, that looks like a pretty large trip, in my opinion. Theater, it takes up a huge amount of time. I know that my student can't participate in theater because it takes out 3 other activities. How are we going to be able to accommodate that many students on a trip? Because choir is large too.
I would like to weigh in, and then Principal Robleski, if you would as well. Excellent question, Member Palmer. We did that this year because it was theater that was up, and we don't have an embedded theater department at the high school, but we have just a stellar and growing middle school theater department. So what we found when we looked at the choir is that if you look at who actually was in the play, that there's a Venn diagram of who is included. And so that's how we handled it this year. As the theater department grows, I would think we will only always have a handful of art students. And that is why we take 2 buses, and there is adequate room on the buses. And if we grow, and this is a wonderful opportunity, if we grow beyond 2 buses, we have 3. Quiet, Bill. Don't go in, Bush is going. And I always say it's nice if we start out the trip with 2 buses to have 2 buses at the end to come home on. But I think what a wonderful situation to have more students that qualify to go on this trip.
Okay. No, I think that's wonderful. It just seemed like that year there was going to be, the fundraising was going to have to be huge to be able to accommodate those needs. So that was my concern.
And Principal Robleski?
You took the words right out of my mouth. I think that Venn diagram of the students and the combination of theater and choir, we'll see a lot of overlap.
Okay.
Anyone else?
No.
Okay, and here no further discussion. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstained? Motion carries. Thank you. Next up is the National School Board Association membership. It's time to consider the renewal of the National School Board Association affiliated membership dues for 2017-2018. 2016-17, the pricing was $4,165. The membership for this year would be the same, $4,165. I guess generally speaking, the membership it allows us is attendance to the National School Board Conference, so it's, I guess I would consider it a professional development membership. And then I know that we also receive a discount for the conference, if I understand correctly, as members. So with that in mind, we'll start with a motion to move this forward if we could.
So moved.
Moyen. We'll give Hala the second.
I'll go second.
You okay with that?
Yeah.
Second? All right, and discussion on that. Okay. Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstain? Motion carries. Next up is the repeal of policy 533. Kristen and Zena.
Chair Larkin, members of the school board, Superintendent Kelly, this evening, Director Stenvik and I come to you for the repeal of Policy 533, Wellness. And the reason for the repeal is we need to repeal this policy in order to replace it with the revision that will be the next item up. So the Healthy Hunger-Free Kids Act of 2010 added new provisions to local school wellness policies. In July 2016, the U.S. Department of Agriculture released the final rule for local school wellness policies, and that local education agencies must meet the new requirements by June 30th, 2017. The Minnesota School Boards Association and the Minnesota Association of School Administrators released a model policy 533, which was reviewed by the School Board Policy Subcommittee on April 11th, 2017. The Columbia Heights Public School School Board completed the first reading of Policy 533 Wellness at the school board meeting on April 25th, 2017. So the current policy, Columbia Heights Public School Policy 533 Wellness, must be repealed in order to be replaced by the revised Policy 533 Wellness that is aligned with the USDA requirements and is aligned with the MSBA, MASA model policy with the inclusion of the previous Columbia Heights Public School Policy 533 Wellness section on the school gardens. So this evening, the governance question is that we are asking the school board to approve the repeal of the Columbia Heights Public School Board Policy 533 Wellness. Thank you.
Motion to move that forward, please.
So moved.
Laura?
And I'll second.
Thank you, Howard. Any discussion on that? And just for clarification, and Kristen did a wonderful job, but for the listening audience, with the new changes that came out, the subcommittee on policy had to put together, at the recommendation of MSBA and all the others that you mentioned, a new wellness policy.
Correct.
But for us to be able to have that in place, we have to dump this one first.
That's correct.
Repeal this one first. Okay.
Thank you.
Any questions, comments? Hearing none, all's in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstain? Motion carries.
Thank
Which
you.
leads- Thank you, sorry. Which leads us to the second reading of a handful of policies, one of them being the 533 wellness policy. We'll start with a motion to move this forward, if we could, please.
So moved.
Thank you, Annie.
A second.
Thank you, Laura. Pulling teeth. I'll read the policies as listed, and then we'll ask for discussion. It'd be 413, which is harassment and violence, 533, which is the wellness, 616, which is the school district system accountability, and these policies were on the April 25th meeting for review. I guess I'll start the discussion by, have we had any comments or questions from the public?
No, we have not.
Okay. Anybody else have any discussion or questions regarding these policies? Hearing none. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstain? Motion carries. Okay. And we'll move on to item E, resolution to place tenured assistant principal employee on unrestricted leave of absence.
Chair Larkin, members of the board, Superintendent Kelly. At the April 11th meeting, it was presented a proposed placement of a tenured assistant principal on unrequested leave of absence. And tonight, we have to follow back up and do a final placement. This assistant principal had the opportunity to request a unrequested leave of absence hearing, which he did not. So now it is our recommendation we move forward with the resolution doing the final placement on unrequested leave of absence.
Okay, so as we do normally with the resolutions, I'll ask for a motion second. I'll read the resolution and then open it up for discussion. So if I could get a motion to move that forward, please.
So moved.
Laura?
Second.
Molly, thank you. And this resolution reads, whereas the school district's reductions in expenditures and school finances must include discontinuance of positions and discontinuance or curtailment of programs. Whereas the School Board of Independent School District Number 13, Columbia Heights, directed the superintendent of schools and administration to consider the discontinuance of programs or positions to effectuate economies in the school district and reduce expenditures, make recommendations to the school board for discontinuance of programs, curtailment of programs, discontinuance of positions or curtailment of positions in order to balance the school district budget. Be it resolved by the School Board of Independent School District Number 13 as follows, that the assistant principal of said school district be placed on unrequested leave of absence without pay or of fringe benefits effective at the end of 2016-2017 school year, no later than June 30th, 2017, pursuant to Minnesota Statute 122A.40 Subdivision 7 and Article 10, Section 1 of the current master agreement between Independent School District Number 13 and the Columbia Heights principals. That said placement on unrequested leave of absence is a result of discontinuance of positions, lack of pupil or financial limitations, and is not the result of the implementation of an education district agreement. That written notice be sent to said assistant principal regarding the placement on unrestricted leave of absence without pay or fringe benefits as provided by law, and shall be in substantially the form as on the notice below. That each and all of the foregoing grounds of said notice are within the grounds of the unrequested leave placement as set forth in Minnesota Statute 122A.40 Subdivision 7, Article 10, Section 1 of the current master agreement between Independent School District 13 and hereby adopted as fully as those separately set forth and resolved here. Any discussion? Hearing no discussion, Nat, if you would, it's a roll call vote, please.
Larkin?
Aye.
Palmer?
Aye.
Mueller?
Aye.
Samurai?
Aye.
Severson? Aye. Lewis?
Aye.
Motion carries. Next up is the discontinuance or reduction of programs and positions for 2017-2018.
So back in January, the school board did adopt a resolution directing the superintendent and administration to look at discontinuance of programs and positions to effectuate economies and efficiency in the school districts and reduce expenditures as necessary. Administration has met, I want to count over probably 100 hours, really trying to figure out where we can make some efficiencies within the district. And on the list, you will see positions that we are recommending to reduce for the following school year. So tonight, we are here seeking approval of the resolution, discontinuance and reduce programs and positions for 2017-2018.
Okay, again, motion to move that forward, please.
So moved.
Second.
Paula? Thank you. Gloria? The resolution reads as follows. Whereas the School Board of Independent School District Number 13 adopted a resolution on January 24th, 2017, directing the administration to make recommendations for reductions in programs and positions, and whereas said recommendations have been received and considered by the school board, be it resolved by the School Board of Independent School District Number 13 as follows. The following programs and positions, or portion thereof, be discontinued due to enrollment, program elimination, curricular changes, and departmental efficiencies. 11 net FTE licensed and non-licensed elementary positions. 2.1875 net FTE licensed and non-licensed Columbia Academy positions. 0.2 FTE non-licensed Human Resource Department positions. All teacher positions with licensure variances by law need to renew. All teacher positions that were one-year contract long-term substitute positions, and all positions cut for performance. The motion for adoption of the foregoing resolution was, oops, that's the motion and second, sorry, was motioned by Holland, second by Lauren. Discussion. Hearing no discussion, Maddie, again, a roll call vote, please.
Larkin?
Aye.
Palmer?
Aye.
Mueller?
Aye.
Samurai?
Aye.
Severson? Aye. Lewis?
Aye.
Motion carries. Next up is the termination of probationary teacher contracts resolution.
Again, and as part of efficiencies, we also need to look at any non-tenured teachers that do need to be non-renewed in accordance with Minnesota Statute 122A.40. On the list you have, this does include teachers cut for performance. It does include teachers that are on a variance. And again, by law, we do need to non-renew them. And teachers on a long-term substitute position. And also teachers we just currently do not have a position for. Some of the staff members throughout the process will possibly be hired back on, say if they're a long-term substitute and we have a position available, but we just have to cut them since they signed a one-year contract. So tonight, the board will be asked to approve the resolution to non-renew the employment contracts of the listed probationary teachers.
Motion to move that forward, please.
So moved.
Laura,
Second.
Molly, thank you. This resolution reads, whereas the following persons are probationary teachers in Independent School District number 13 on the list, be it resolved by the School Board of Independent School District number 13 that pursuant to Minnesota statutes 122A.40 subdivision 5, the teaching contracts of those persons listed on the page 2 of this resolution, probationary teachers in Independent School District number 13, are hereby terminated and not renewed at the close of the 2016-2017 school year. Be it further resolved that written notice be sent to said teachers regarding termination and non-renewal of his or her contract as provided by law, and that said notice shall be in substantially the following form as noted. Any discussion? Hearing no discussion. Natty, please, roll call.
Larkin?
Aye.
Palmer?
Aye.
Mueller?
Aye.
A Samurai?
Aye.
Severson? Aye. Lewis?
Aye.
Motion carries. Finally, termination of programs and positions.
So the final resolution for staffing is the termination, elimination, and reductions of positions and programs. These are positions and programs not covered under Minnesota Statute 122A40, so the probationary teachers. So it'd be more licensed, non-affiliated staff. So tonight, we're here seeking approval of this resolution.
Motion to move that forward, please.
So moved.
Natty,
Second.
second, Molly. The resolution reads as follows. Whereas the following are positions or employees in Independent School District number 13 licensed and non-affiliated listed below. Be it resolved by the School Board of Independent School District 13 that those persons or positions listed above in Independent School District number 13 are hereby terminated, eliminated, or reduced at the close of the current 2016-2017 school or the date otherwise noted. Be it further resolved that written notice be sent to said employees regarding termination, elimination, and reduction. Discussion. Hearing none. Natty, roll call, please.
Larkin?
Aye.
Palmer?
Aye.
Mueller?
Aye.
A Samurai?
Aye.
Severson? Aye. Lewis?
Aye.
Motion carries. Anybody have anything for board topics tonight? Thank you, guys, by the way.
Chair Larkin, if nobody else has anything, I do have one thing.
Aye. Anybody else have board topics? Okay.
As you know, the community breakfast is occurring tomorrow morning. For those of you attending, I think it starts at like about 6:45. How it is very special for us tomorrow morning is that the city of Columbia Heights and specifically the mayor worked with the Kiwanis Club to actually host and serve the breakfast tomorrow. And so revenues or proceeds from that breakfast will be going directly to our students. And so if you would see someone from the city or for that matter from the Kiwanis Club tomorrow morning, be sure to thank them. I would like to publicly go on television and thank them for their generosity, one and all. It is a wonderful donation and a contribution to our students and their endeavors in Kiwanis and in Key Club.
There's no other board topics. We'll adjourn the meeting at 8:43. Thanks, everybody.